I want to start off talking about Naomi Osaka because I want your view on it as somebody who now works for LinkedIn and you're helping navigate this whole workplace. I believe that the pendulum has moved, has swung. And I also believe there are a whole lot of people who missed it. they don't they don't know that the pendulum has swung right by them and is over here. I believe that Kaepernick told us something when he took that knee and then made more money than he would ever make on the football field. Off the field, he's got a Nike contract that has nothing to do with him playing football, which is a game changer in my opinion. Naomi Osaka this year became she hit a record, $55 million, historic number for a woman athlete ever. Only 5.2 million of that was made on the court. 50 million was made off the court. Who has the power today, Drew McCaskill? Is Naomi Osaka's move, and I believe it was both strategic and for mental health. I think it was two things happening. She is about that change. Make that change. She's about it. She's going to force it because what she realized, which many of us are coming to realize, which our ancestors might have gotten a glimpse of, but we know for sure, these companies rely on people. These industries rely on people. These leagues, not about the billionaire owners. You have no franchise without a player.
Right.
Period. Full stop. Ain't nobody watching your women's tennis if Serena, Venus, Osaka, Coco Gauff. Promise you, you can bring in all of the Russian players you want to. We ain't watching. So what you gonna do? Check. This was a check move. And I don't know how tennis is going to respond, but I imagine that Naomi Osaka has a checkmate move up her sleeve as well. What are your thoughts on this?
I think that Naomi Osaka, what she did is indicative of what we're starting to see all around, is that people saying, you rent my time, you don't buy me, you don't own me, right? And I think that's something that whether you're a Naomi Osaka making $55 million a year or you're an employee at a company making $55,000 a year, is that people are now saying, I, as an employee, I have more voice and more choice than I have ever had before. And therefore I have more power. I can walk out and I can vote with my feet. I can make my needs and my feelings heard with my employer. They have a choice. They can react and respond to that accordingly. But I have a lot more power and agency than I have believed I've had. I believe we've always had a modicum of power inside these organizations, but we've always had agency. We just have not seen our agency the way the employer does, right? And so when you have people that say that in the bus boycott that said, I'm gonna still show up to work, but I'm going to walk to work. I'm going to pool to work. I'm going to cab pool to work. I'm going to do all of these things. I'm going to still show up to work, but I'm going to show up to work. I have agency. You don't own me. You can't say how I show up to work, right? And so we always had agency and power. It's when we acknowledge it and accept it for ourselves that just because this employer told me that I have to do this or be this or think this, does not mean that I actually have to. See, we've had agency for a very long time. It's when we actually acknowledge it and know it within ourselves and show up differently. When you know that you have agency, you show up differently. We have it. We just have to see more examples of it, like Osaka is showing. We have to see more examples of it in our day-to-day lives. We have to look back at our history and look at our history, how it was versus how it's been taught to us and how it's been whitewashed and revision and revised, right? If we go back and look at our history, even when we didn't have agency, we made agency within those spaces. Some of us did, right? It's like,
yeah, I mean, I'm watching High on the Hog, and the enslaved Hemmings, who gave us macaroni and cheese, was able to leverage his freedom through his agency and his through the thing that he could do that nobody else could. Exactly. So that's power, right? If you do something, no one else plays tennis like Naomi Osaka, like Serena Williams. No one plays basketball like LeBron James, like Steph Curry. Those people are in positions to do something that most cannot. Kaepernick was not a world-class football player. If he were Tom Brady in black skin, if Tom Brady were black, it would have been a whole different ball game.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have lost his job either. And we're seeing now more and more people in positions of power, even a Kyrie Irving saying some things that, because what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You going to sit me on the bench? No, you're not. And Roland Garros, those folks, those tennis, the French Open folk, they lost a bet. They knucked if they bucked, and they got chucked. Yeah. And they didn't know, they didn't realize what they were dealing with, because they threatened this young lady. Either you show up or else. Right. And she said, you know what? I'll withdraw.
Yeah. Let me see what else looks like.
Right. Yeah. And they're not used to that.
At all.
And I'm so happy she or else them, because now what?
Right.
Well, now what? What you gonna do? I make $50 million off the court. And let me tell you something. If I never play another round of tennis, that $55 million that I made, 52.5, I could probably live off of that for the rest of my life. I think I'm good. Me and my family, we good. But guess what? Nike has backed her, because guess what? Nike knows. They know something. Nike been knowing something.
Nike has been knowing something. Nike knows that the future of not just of their consumer base in this country, but the future of their consumer base in the world looks like Naomi Osaka. Looks more like Naomi Osaka than it looks like the band of folks at the UTA or the European Tennis Union that said, we're gonna make her do something. I also think Karen noted it's not just about the people like Naomi Osaka who have the money to sit down and not do anything else that have power and agency. It's also, I think, about we are now in a place where this pandemic has taught us a lot. It hasn't taught us everything, but it has taught us a lot. I think that a lot of people out there right now are saying, I need money, I want money, but money is not worth my mental health. That money that even, and I'm not talking about the $55 million folks, I'm talking about the 35,000 folks and the 55,000 folks who are saying, I value me over this check that you are giving me. You giving me this check you're not paying for my mental health, and you're not buying my agency away from me. And I think that is a reckoning that is happening with employees and employee bases all over this country. It's a very different thing that we're seeing.
The power has shifted, and it's shifted on so many levels. I'm like, to watch evolution happen in time, many of us never get an opportunity to have a seat at that table. We are witnessing an evolution within our generation, within our time, on so many fronts at the same time that it may be hard for people to keep up. So I'm going to just let y'all know. There's another place. Okay, so Osaka said, I don't want to talk to reporters because they ask me questions. It puts me in a mental state that doesn't prepare me. So she's there to play tennis, right? Her job is a tennis player. Sure, she signed a contract to meet with the press. So a lot of people are getting on her. She signed a contract as if, how many of you have signed a social contract or work contract, and then your job somehow fell on hard times and they fired you? Didn't give you 2 weeks notice. You show up to work. You've been working. You've been giving them all your goodness. You may have been at the company for 10 years. I think of the Enron people who signed a contract to show up to work, and those motherfuckers betrayed their workers with schemes and scams and Ponzi schemes and forfeited their futures. How often does that happen in this country? Banks go under, you lose all your money. So we are constantly having breached contracts. So put that over here. Full disclosure, I don't even do contracts anymore because I shouldn't. I think the universe doesn't want me to say that. Hold on.
The universe said, "Hold on, Karen. Don't give it all away."
No, but there is. I know as a grown person in business, any contract can be breached, broken. Divorces, they happen all the time. You sign a contract. I'm going to be with you for the rest of my life. I don't want to anymore. What we go. You go to court. Lawyers get rich. It's not a scheme or a scandal, but I just feel like the people who are saying she signed a contract, she should show up sit down somewhere for a second. And let me just tell you this. As a journalist, I even see that field I saw it with Mike Brown. I saw it with George Floyd. I saw it with Eric Gardner. Journalism has changed. The Arab Spring, what's going on with the Palestinians and Israelis. What is journalism? Journalism is telling the stories of what's going on, the truth, and delivering it to the people. Guess what? We have social media platforms now. Everybody's a journalist. Mm-hmm. Now, they may not all be trained, but these journalists aren't trained. Let me just tell you, as somebody who's been watching and teaching journalism for the last 20 years, these people out here who are calling themselves journalists, who read a teleprompter, who go out in Haiti and pick up a black child in front of the cameras, who go into hurricanes and wait for the wind. That's not journalism. That's theater. That's theater. That's television. That's WWE. That's all of that. And yes, you're putting yourself in harm's way. That's not journalism. Yeah. Journalism is what's going on in Brazil right now. Do y'all know? Do y'all know what's happening in Ethiopia? Really? Do you know who's over there telling us these stories? So if you're not doing that, and as it relates to sports journalism, as a former sports journalist, your job is to get a gotcha. Mm-hmm. You're either coming into that locker room or into that space to have a sound bite that you can go viral with because your newspaper depends on you going viral to make money. So is it in Naomi Osaka or Serena or LeBron's best interest to sit there and talk to a journalist when they're not there to necessarily bolster them? Now, there was a time when a journalist could make a lot of money for you, could put you in the spotlight. But today, athletes have access to their own audience.
And their audiences are bigger.
Come on. Nike knows this. Nike, Under Armour. One of these, anybody could go on TikTok or Instagram and they have 1 million+ followers and they could deliver a message and tell them whatever they want. They don't need you in the locker room anymore. The game has changed. Yeah. The pendulum has swung. There's no need for a sports journalist. I just said it. Uh-oh, what happens? 866-801-8255. The companies know that. Yeah. And now the athletes know that. LeBron has the shop. Let me tell you, one of the best things on television. Yep. This man is talking, he and Maverick the last one was with Jay-Z. Woo, I was like, oh my goodness, Bad Bunny and NECA. And I was sitting there and I was like, oh my goodness, this is something no journalist can do. These are the kind of panels that they try to assemble. The best basketball show on television is Shaq, Charles, Kenny Smith, and Ernie Johnson. Former athletes. Ernie's basically throwing it up, but they're all athletes, not journalists. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, what's her value? What's the benefit of Naomi Osaka showing up? She doesn't need to show up. So you find her and then you threaten her and then she quit. Now what? What's your next move, tennis? Yeah. Can't make her do it.
You can't make her do it. And that's the real headline, is that you can't make her do it. Right? What she said is that, now, just like anybody else, there are going to be consequences to actions. What she said is, I did the math on it. And the consequence to this is something that I can live with. Can you, Tennis Association, live with the #1 female player in the world right now not being on that tennis court? I can live with my consequences. Can you live with yours? Is essentially what Naomi Osaka is saying, right? And I get to your point about sports journalism. We're at the point now where it's really about peers and former peers being the journalists, right? So the #1 people who can actually have access to the business community are other people who have been in business, right? That's why the creator economy is such a big deal. CEOs are more likely to talk to another CEO than they're likely to have a conversation with a journalist, because they're not having a conversation with someone who understands what their day-to-day experience is and what they're trying to accomplish is on a higher level. They're vibrating at a much higher frequency, and the frequency makes more sense. Now the conversation is better, so the people who are actually listening get more out of it. I can tell you right now, Jay-Z would not do an interview with any music journalist right now, but he'll go on the shop and have a conversation with LeBron and tell LeBron that I only learned how to swim because I wanted to be there to protect my daughter. I didn't learn how to swim until my daughter came into the world, and the thought that she may fall into a pool and I not be able to save her was the impetus for me, a grown man, to now say, I'm going to go out and take swimming lessons because that's part of what I'm here to do, is protect my child. He would have never said that to a music journalist. He would have said that to Teray when Teray was the top Black, sort of music journalist. He would have never never said that. He couldn't have gotten in that room with him.
The game has changed.
Power
has shifted. And I've been saying this for a minute, Drew McCaskill. We see it in voting. We saw what happened in Georgia. We saw what happened nationally with the presidential election. This could happen over and over and over and over again. Because the truth of the matter is, even if we're not filling out the census, we have the numbers to show up to vote. So that's just one thing. Oh, you know what else we have the numbers for? And Drew McCaskill taught us this. We over-index in so many sectors financially. If we collectively decided, today we're not drinking X, we're not eating Y, we're not purchasing Z. Watch how quickly X, Y, and Z get in line to do. What do y'all want? What y'all need? What? Okay, y'all need. Okay, you need a park in your. Okay, yeah, you gotta put Popeyes on every corner. Where's the park? Where's the library? Popeyes, you're gonna have to be before we go. Love that chicken from Popeyes. You're gonna have to come over here and give us a library.
Yep.
But we're not.
Love that Rick Center from Popeyes. How about that?
Come on, or else. How about that? How about that or else? And does Popeyes have the money? Absolutely. Why do they have the money? Because we gave it to them.
Absolutely.
You want to talk about reparations? Let's talk. 866-801-8255. Oh, here's the other thing. There was this time where I was watching all the commercials, everybody that wants to be mayor of New York, and they got like pastors and people endorsing. And I'm sitting there like, there was a time you could come to our church and we'd be like, okay, all right, I guess that's who we voting for. Now it's like, where are the receipts beforehand? And what do you like? The mindset has shifted. And you're right about this generation, because there's a study out that says that there is a worker shortage. We don't have enough people to do the jobs, period, full stop. And we're talking about skill jobs. And I was saying this in tech for the last 6 years. There's a 4 million person shortage in tech. And Black people only make up 2%. That to me, and these jobs start at 75,000. That's an easy slim. But people aren't trying to work. And you said the pandemic has exposed, all I need is just enough. I don't want to be stressed out. I ain't trying to get on nobody's train or bus. I'm not trying to be in the office with y'all shenanigans. I'm not even trying to come back. You know what I could do? Deliver this stuff, invest my money. I don't need a whole lot. I did my dollar cost analysis. I saved more money sitting at home or doing something online or being a quote unquote influencer. I could make a couple $1,000s a month on YouTube. I'm good.
Yeah.
I ain't got to do this. And people are choosing, in this generation, these young people, they really not trying to work. I know I teach them. They're not trying to work, period. So what's America going to do? This is going to hurt our economy. We don't have enough jobs. So now the power shifted. You can't do what you used to do, bosses.
Right.
Because what you going to do? There was a nursing shortage. You had to give bonuses and incentives for people to come into the nursing field. That's going to end up happening in a lot of other industries too. Just sit and wait. But I kind of like what's happening right now, Drew.
Yeah. Listen, as it relates to the world of work, I'm a Sunday school kid, and I've been saying this in the office all the time, is that all the tables in the temple have been flipped as it relates to work. People not only have figured out what they need, they also have figured out that all the things that y'all are telling me that I need to be successful, air quote successful, or to be air quote, not even successful, but just air quotes good. I don't need all what you told me. I just spent a year and a half in my house still eating. And I figured out I now know what I need to survive, right? And to be good, right? And what people are now saying is the gig economy is out there. I can work differently. It's not that people don't want to work, Karen. It is really that people do not want to work in the same old school paradigm that generations before them have been inclined to do, because either they didn't know that they had the option not to, or that the situation and the circumstances were different. Work has been democratized in a way that is very different. So you can do work from your home. You can have a couple of jobs. You don't have to go and punch a time clock, sit in a space and do that one thing over and over while somebody watches you to make sure that you don't get up and move and go to the bathroom and have a cigarette break and all of that, and then punch out and then go home and then come back the next day. It is not that people do not want to work. It is that people do not want to work in an old paradigm that does not fit their life today. And they are forcing the people who sign the front of the checks to give them the opportunity and option and agency to work differently, because what they have figured out is that there are a lot of people signing the front of checks. I don't have to go to the same people who have been signing them all this time. I'm the candidate.
We also know that productivity has gone up. So the lie that I have to be in an office to be productive so that you could oversee me, which is a vestige of slavery.
Yeah.
It's not necessary. I work better at home. A lot of people do. I know a lot of people are super social and they miss the office, but most people, and this is a fact, have productivity has gone up, not down. 866-801-8255. Also, they're calling this crisis. They're calling it a crisis. America Works in the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They did a whole study on Monday. They announced a nationwide initiative to address the work shortage. They're calling the initiative America Works, which is aimed to mobilize industry and government to address America's deepening worker crisis, shortage crisis. And they said that they lack the workers to fill open jobs. And it's not a new problem, but this is hurting our economy. 8.1 million job openings in the United States, March 2021, and only about a half of them are actually filled. You do the math. We're in a place right now. I'm not unhappy about it.
Me either.
Full disclosure. I like when we the people get to do things. And as a person that is now employing, I'm just looking at my payroll, a lot of people, I'm really happy to be able to do that. But I'm also like in the Henry Ford model, you want to make sure the people who are working for you or working with you, because I don't even think people work. To me, I'm giving everybody in this agency to find their space and run with it. Find the thing that you do that you're passionate about and run with it within this company. But also, I want you to be happy, right? Yeah. Meaning that you're valued. I'm not gonna play games with you. I give people raises, Drew, that they didn't ask for because they produced. And I feel like, I've always wanted to just have somebody, hey, you're doing a great job. Here's more money because you're making more money for me. Here's more money. I do it. I don't even tell them, here's more money. Because if I'm making more money because of the work you're doing, you're going to make more money. That has to be the way. And Henry Ford's like, I want the people on this assembly line to be able to afford my cars. Right. So let me give them enough money. Now, he ain't like them. He wasn't, he wasn't a good guy or whatever, but he was a smart businessman because he's like, I need everyone buying these Fords. Right. And that means the people working here have to make enough money, have to have enough time to be able to drive the cars. So he created a business that allowed for that instead of the greed model that we've had for the last 30, 40 years, which to me, where the rich get richer and then the people are like, how am I making $12 an hour and you're a freaking richest man in the world? How you not breaking off some of that? Like, that makes no sense to me. And it can't sustain itself.
It can't. It's not going to sustain itself because there are too many people who are willing to drop out. That's why we have the employee shortage, right? That's why we have the worker shortage. There are too many people who are willing to drop out because the inequities in the system are so flagrant and so in your face that it's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable that it's going to happen. The other piece of it is that this is one of the things that I've not been able to get off of my mind since Mayor Lumumba and I had this conversation when you were on vacation. And he talked about the fact that we are slowly but surely being forced into a dignity economy, a human dignity economy. And he said that companies and governments are going to have to rethink how they impact human dignity, how they put a value on it, because actual workers and actual customers are going to demand it. It may not happen organically, or because somebody wakes up one day and say, this is what's good for the world. I want to be on the right side of history. It's going to happen because employees and customers recognizing the value that they bring to this capitalist enterprise that we have all engaged in some way, shape, or form are going to say, I wonder what would happen if the employees and the customers were on the same page and the corporations were forced into reciprocity. I've been preaching this whole sermon about that consumers need to demand more reciprocal relationships with the companies that they buy products from and that they consume these companies' media. What I did not even see in the 5 years that I was standing on the stump preaching that sermon, was that imagine if the consumers and the employees were on the same page. There would be no choice but for the corporations and the companies to then begin to have more reciprocal relationships, not only with their employees, but with their customers as well.
I mean, it only makes sense.
Paradigm.
And I'm giving you my money and making it possible for you to run a company. The least you could do is have respect for who I am as a person.
And my community and where I come from.
Everything.
And the fact that if you do a better job with having reciprocal relationships with the people who are buying your products, you create a virtuous cycle of people who are out there who now have a great relationship with the company, and you have a better chance of now having a better set of employees, of people who actually want to go and work for the company. That was one of the great models that in your Ford model, is that they treated the employees so well that people wanted their kids to come and work for the company. I know plenty of families that have three generations at the Ford plant, right?
That's right.
And it wasn't because that was their only option. It was because it was a damn good option, right? Up until for a very long time. And if you can create that virtuous cycle of like, okay, not only are we in the community and we're treating our customers well, that creates a much more opportunity for that customer base to say, damn, not only do I like the product, I wouldn't mind going to work for them.
866-801-8255. We're going to go to the phones. I just want to, again, underscore, I'm not trashing journalism, although I do believe that journalism has fallen down dramatically for the last couple of decades. And it's been embarrassing as somebody who trained in what I call one of the most important crafts, teaching, medicine, journalism is the one saving factor. They allow for, a whole ass tyrant to, literally usher them in because of clicks and algorithms, because you were making money, news, quote unquote, news outlets, and couldn't get enough. You gave them billions of dollars of free press at our expense. So I put that right at the feet of journalists. In the sports realm, I have literally watched, and I can admit to this, you're sent into these locker rooms, even if they're not telling you inherently, you need to go viral. You need to get a gotcha. You need to get them to say something that's gonna, make your name known, and in many instances, destroying people becomes almost commonplace, meaning, if I can find out about your scandal, they sent me down, Drew, and I was young and I wasn't like who I am now, but I got sent to the Mets spring training because of the scandal they had this previous season to see so they go to the club. I'm in the clubs, I'm like waiting to see if there's drugs, the women, like I'm literally a spy. I'm like a COINTELPRO, FBI, to come back and write to destroy these folk whose job it is to play baseball. Like, they're not your children's babysitters. And some of y'all look up to them like Charles Barkley. I'm not your child's role model, but we're paying them, or we're watching them to play baseball.
Yeah.
And the drugs or whatever, as in the case of Darryl Strawberry and Doc Gooden, they were addicts. These weren't people that, I'm not saying they couldn't help themselves, but it was like the early parts before there was a TMZ. This has always been a threat. And it's usually people who can't do what they do. Like, I'm a woman in a baseball locker room having jock straps thrown across, and they didn't want me there. People lifted their legs, farting at me and stuff. And I was like, oh, I can't believe this. But I get it. I'm an intruder. I don't belong there. Not saying because I'm a woman, I don't belong there, but this is a brotherhood fraternity situation where their locker room should be their sanctity. And as far as Naomi Osaka, her job is to win a damn tennis tournament. There has to be another way. And if she doesn't want to do it, she signed. You made a contract with the journalist. She made a contract as well, but she doesn't have to do it because she can talk directly to the people. Because the reason why we have journalists is to bring it back to the people. I tell my students, you're the eyes and ears for somebody who can't be in that room. You're telling the stories that people can't, if you're a travel journalist, you're taking us places we can go through your words or what have you. There's value in that. But on the athletic playing field, these athletes can talk directly to their audience, to their fans, and they don't need a conduit. They don't need someone to disseminate the information anymore.
And every generation should learn from the previous one. So you should learn from the greatness of the greats, but you should also learn from the mistakes of the greats as well. And every single one of us has seen both Venus and Serena sitting on that dais after a match, and they have given everything that they physically, emotionally, mentally have in that moment on that court. They literally left it all on the court. And we've seen them be emotional. We've seen them break down. We've seen them say that I'm only here because I have to be, right? And I feel like for Naomi, she said, I want to be great, but I don't want to do all the things that the last great did. There should be an evolution. This should get better time and time again for everybody around. I'm gonna say no. Y'all can, I would deal with the $15,000 consequences or whatever that is, or for not showing up. But I don't want to suffer the way the previous greats suffered. That doesn't make her a bad athlete or a bad businesswoman. That makes her human. And that makes her someone who has said, I get to decide how I live my life. And I get to decide whether or not I stand up and volunteer for this trauma, because those journalists would ask Serena and Venus questions that were meant to traumatize them, meant to incite a negative reaction from them, meant to make them emotional, meant to paint a picture of them that was different. I would hear people say about Serena all the time, oh, she's a whiner, she's a crybaby, all these things. And they weren't talking about her proficiency on the court. They were talking about how she was in those conversations with journalists being goaded into responses and reactions. And Naomi said, I'm not going to play that particular game. I came to play the game of tennis, not the game of see what kind of reaction and response you can get from the athlete. And they don't do it to men in the exact same way that they do it to women either.
Oh, they don't. You are absolutely correct on all fronts. And I just think when you said the next generation should be better, you know, I many of us were raised by parents who were super hard on us because the world was super hard for them and they wanted us to make sure we were prepared for it. But I'm like, the world is different. You know, as I mentioned many times, my dad wanted me to get a good government job so that I would be able to eat. And I'm like, I'm going to do it a little differently. And I'm not going to tell you how. I just see that there's something different that probably your generation, my personality definitely need to have a good government job. But I think I could remix this.